The Guardians only needed 2 hours to shut out the Colorado Rockies and win another series. But the thought on everybody's mind right now is, was that the last game that Stephen Kwan and Shane Bieber will be in the Cleveland dugout?
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Guardians, and it's our last episode before MLB's 2025 trade deadline. So on today's show, we are going to get into a lot of that. This is, of course, Locked On Guardians, and we are covering your Cleveland Guardians for the next half hour. We do it every day from the majors to minors in the draft. Nobody else is kicking you all around the organization 5 days a week like we are. I'm Justin Lada. I have been co-hosting this podcast with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis since October 2022. Before that, I was providing prospect analysis and scouting reports on the Guardians farm system since 2007 for a myriad of sites, including right now my own at Substack and the News Herald and the Morning Journal.
And as you mentioned, I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here since Locked On expanded into baseball 6 years ago. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout in 24/7, focused on prospects and the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. A big shout out to our everydayers everywhere. Shout out to the dudes working over at Leonardo's Pizza in Fairlawn. I'm back in my home stomping grounds, and I got my first someone in public being like, "You're from Locked On Guardians." So that was kind of a fun moment with the gentlemen who were working over there today. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's joining in, checking us out. Our numbers have been flowing up. So I know we're doing something right. We'll have some iTunes shout outs tomorrow.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks to everybody who's in every day. We've had a lot of kind words coming our way lately. On today's episode of Locked On Guardians, we'll talk about the Guardians bullpen game win over the Rockies and finishing off that series in good fashion. We'll talk about what the price is for Stephen Kwan and if he'll be traded. And we'll also get into, on our first segment, a lot of trades today involving a lot of relievers. Of course, none of them involving the Cleveland Guardians. We'll talk about whether or not the Guardians could have gotten for Emmanuel Clase and what the Guardians could have done in the trade market already, even though they haven't done anything. Before we get to all of that, this episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your first order. Only valid to September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. It was a busy day on the trade market, of course, none of it involving the Guardians. A lot of rumors, a lot of smoke, though. I'm going to go back to the beginning, too, and just want to say, like, I text this to our insiders on all day. I was like, I'm just keeping everybody up to date on what we're hearing, what other people are reporting, so it comes right to your phone, so you know, and just trying to add context to reports. Mark Feinstein at MLB.com was like, the Guardians are trying to trade both Kwan and Bieber.
He's had some terrible headlines in the past, too. Can we just state that? Like, he is the clickbaitiest of clickbait newsbreakers in all of baseball.
Yes, he works for the league, and I'm not saying the guy's not a reliable source because he does work for the league. He does have the incentive to, like you said, get clicks. He also has the incentive to push things to bigger markets as well.
Yes.
Like everybody else. I know John Heyman had stuff out there too. John Heyman is pretty much down there too, unless you are hearing it from Jeff Passan, Ken Rosenthal, or Zach Meisel. And regarding the Guardians, everything's a grain of salt. And remember, too, with the Guardians, trades from them, moves from them in general, are without smoke, right? Like you said this the other day, I think, Jeff, the Lane Thomas trade, the Andres Gimenez trade, the most recent ones, the Josh Naylor trade, pretty much none of that. Like, we kind of had an idea Naylor was going to go, but for the most part, all those trades, like, we didn't know Andres Gimenez was being traded. We had no idea the Guardians were interested in Lane Thomas. When those trades happen, they come without a lot of smoke. There's a lot of smoke here. Now, you can compare the Shane Bieber situation to the Josh Naylor situation based on his proximity to free agency. The Kwan thing is a little unprecedented. And I'll say this, too. Again, who does that rumor benefit? If you have somebody who's tweeting out, okay, the Guardians are trying to trade, that to me feels like, A, another team is trying to make it seem like these guys are available, or B, the Guardians might even be leaking that and saying they don't normally leak, but if they have a purpose.
There's a C as well.
Well, I was going to say drive up the value, but what's the C?
The C is the writer getting more eyes on their article because there's it is a very, very dry market for hitters. And honestly, outside of Stephen Kwan, who's the interesting hitter who's even been talked about? There isn't one. This market is devoid.
Hayes.
Yeah, I mean,
Brian Hayes.
Okay, Brian Hayes is an elite defender, but he's essentially a worse version of Andres Jimenez at third, where he is.
Yeah, calling him a hitter might be a little generous.
But that's the thing. What drives? Like, pitching is fun, but hitting is what's always been sexy. Like, go back to the commercials. Chicks dig the long ball. They love to bring up that old 90s commercial. Hitters are what people are interested in. All of today was about trading relief pitching, right? There is not a lot of hitters available. We had a platoon bats. So if you want an article and you want to maximize your hits, you're going to say that you're going to use more definitive language. I mean, we do this on YouTube, right? Like some of the way we phrase our episodes is intentional to help people be more likely to tune in. It's the same thing. I mean, Feinstein just had basically what looked like an AI generated headline to say something was happening. And there are no hitters in this market right now. There is no one being talked about. There is no discussion outside of Suarez. And we haven't heard as much about him due to his hand injury. So outside of Suarez, Kwan's the guy. So they're going to lead with him because that is the C.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah, and we'll get into more Kwan in the next segment. I want to focus a little more on Emmanuel Clase, obviously not being traded, but we did see a heavy focus on the relief market on Wednesday. It was Johan Duran went to the Phillies. Ryan Helsley got traded. Tyler Rogers both got traded. Tyler got the bigger return to where did Tyler get traded? The Mets. The Mets gave up, 6 prospects, I think, to get 2 relievers, and honestly didn't give up a whole lot. Like, I like Drew Gilbert. I like Blade Tidwell as a reliever, but those guys are like role players on a major league team. So the Giants got some good players in return. They're going to help them soon, but for a rental reliever, that's a good cost. And then the Mets are trying to win a championship, so I get it. But I saw a lot of people, Jeff, saying the returns for like Johan Duran and everybody else. Wow, we should have been able to trade Clase. He really screwed him. I don't think the Guardians were dead set on trading Clase. Yeah. Like even if you believe Zach Meisel, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but he said it seemed like the Guardians, even before they knew he was being investigated, had kind of backed off the idea of trading him because they didn't have to. They could have done this a year from now. Clase was pitching great. I know he blew the save over the weekend. But outside of April, his numbers have been pretty much as usual, dominant. They could have done this over the offseason. They could have done it next year if they wanted to, given his price tag. And this team realistically should be competing in 2026. We'll get into that more later too. But all the returns for that, like I would say this, Clase definitely, to me, gets a bigger return than Johan Duran, who got Mick Abel and Eduardo Tait, who I think Tait's a good hitter, but he's far away, and he's also not a catcher.
He's not.
He
hasn't been hitting. Yeah, he hasn't hit well this year, and catchers are tricky. It's all ceiling.
Yeah.
And a guy who most of us think is a reliever who fell off of top 100 lists.
Yes.
So,
and Clase is more consistent than Duran. He is cost controlled, whereas Duran is arbitration eligible. They have the same amount of control, but Clase is cheaper and is cost controlled and much more consistent. So I think he would have netted a bigger return. So, but I don't sit there and say like, oh, the Clase screwed the Guardians of their biggest trade target, because I don't think they had to trade him. I think they could have easily, and they did, set a very high price. And you saw what the Phillies paid for Johan Duran and what the Mets played for Ryan Helsley, and the Guardians would have topped that in terms of return. And if they would have got that, maybe they would have moved him, but they didn't have to. And I don't think they would have. Truthfully.
And I don't think that's why it would have happened, because at the end of the day, it's all cost. A baseball team is part talent and it's part, economics. And if that is the cost of that, but the economics of it, right? Like if it's that expensive to add a reliever to try to, it would have decimated, we've seen it. It's decimated their pen now. If you're trying to do that, trying to find someone else to fill that void is an impossibility. So I think probably, and from what we've heard, they weren't even shopping him. So it doesn't matter in the end anyways.
Yeah. People want to run with these rumors about shopping. It's like the Guardians don't ever really shop anybody.
No.
Like, it's more of listening, especially when it's long-term control. Like, yes, the Naylor thing, like when we talk about guys who are coming up on the end of their club control, there might be more of a shop feel to it, like, those things. But when it comes to guys like Clase and like Stephen Kwan, they're not really shopping. It's more of listening, and we'll set a high price. And if you meet it, we might make a deal if it benefits us. We'll talk more about Stephen Kwan. We'll talk more about Shane Bieber. We'll talk more about the Guardians win over the Rockies coming up on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. Woo, it's a good day for 5-hour energy during the trade deadline. It is time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-hour energy transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. So whether you're sinking birdies or making memories with friends, this is a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I know over the next 24 hours, I need it for the trade deadline. I got to say, I'm not much of a golfer, but when I do play scramble golf. And even that's a long day because I'm a terrible golfer. So it's a long day on the course. I need some energy and I want it to taste good. So even scramble or regular golf, it's going to be a long day for me. I'm turning up for some energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. That is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid till September 30th, so come up on it soon. On one order, cannot be used on promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-hour energy shots today. All right, a lot of rumors that were passing through on Wednesday ahead of the trade deadline. And obviously there was Kwan, there was Bieber, all that stuff. I really wonder, again, I don't feel like the price for Kwan was ever going to be met. Like Ken Rosenthal said on Wednesday night that the Reds and Guardians had talks about Stephen Kwan, and the Reds said they were not comfortable with the price. That just tells you that the Guardians have set a very high price because they don't have to trade Stephen Kwan. Like, do I think that they're going to let him walk into free agency without getting anything for him? Probably not. They typically don't do that. But they haven't traded a position player with club control. We've reiterated this, right? They haven't done that since what? Victor Martinez? Was he the last one? Was he before or after?
No, it was Peralta. He was before Peralta, so it's Peralta. Johnny Peralta's last time they traded a position player who had more than 1 year of team control left. So it's been a long time. By the way, Zach Littell just traded while we're talking.
I saw that he's going to the Reds, which makes sense.
Reds are making a few minor deals here and there.
Yeah, the Rays are selling. Really no shock there. But yeah, I think the price, I think that comment from the Reds tells you the price on Kwan is very high. The Reds even got out of the Eugenio Suarez market by going to Brian Hayes. They had to give up a lot less because they're also getting money from the Pirates anyway, but that's a whole other story. So I think the price for Kwan is exorbitantly high, and it should be because there's no reason for the Guardians to trade him. Again, Clase or no Clase in 2026, this team is still in a position to compete. Now, we'll see what happens to them in the offseason. We have no idea what the future of Clase or Ortiz is for that matter at this point. But this is still a roster with the tools to compete next year. You've got a good rotation. You've got, even without Luis Ortiz, like Slade Ciccone is developing. You still have Gavin. You still have Tanner. You can bring back Logan if you don't flip him. You've got Messick and other guys up there too. So you could still roll in the next year the same rotation, and you can always find bullpen guys. Like, that's not a problem. Bullpen, you have the guys in place now. You have to figure out where things go from there. And then next year, you're hoping that somehow, Chase DeLauder becomes the bionic man, and you'll have Travis Bazzana at some point. You can still, and you might have CJ Kafis. So
and this is still a team that you got to add him to the 40 man anyway. So.
You got to add, and out of the 40. So like you can still make moves over the offseason to improve your team going into next year. So there's no reason to sit there and say, well, they got to tear it down, because they really don't. And that's why I'm saying, like, I know some people were like, oh, they should trade him to San Diego for Leo DeVries. I don't think this team is looking for a return like Leo DeVries. He might be a great player. I'm not saying he's not worth it, but we've talked about this a couple times on the show already, Jeff. Like, I don't think he makes sense for them as their main centerpiece for Kwan. And if the Padres want Stephen Kwan, let's be clear, they have to get a third team involved, because there is, if the Guardians don't want Leo DeVries as their main return, and I don't think the Padres will trade Ethan Salas, nor should the Guardians take him on because he's such a risk right now. I
it's just not happening. I think we can just move on and say it's not. The Padres don't make any a heap of sense. No. It's not even a third team. It doesn't make any sense. Like when they did a third teamer in the past, is because they were willing to move Franmil and they didn't want Bauer. and they were interested in adding. They were consolidating prospects is how they viewed it. San Diego doesn't make a lick of sense. And they didn't trade with San Diego last year. I think we're beyond the always making San Diego trades. The one thing I'll say that I'm curious about in terms of the bullpen and adding pieces is if they will be a team that tries to claim or consider signing Aniel De Los Santos, who was let go today.
He was pitching okay, which is interesting.
He was pitching okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say don't be shocked if there's a reunion there. But
I wouldn't be against it.
But I think with this team, it's like what it comes down to, and I'll be honest, I think the only team that really makes sense, and I was throwing you some offers, is the Mets. If the Mets want to keep dealing, because they have a fantastic minor leagues. They have some really interesting hitters in the upper part of it. And I know Jet Williams is the number one prospect, and I was a big Jet Williams guy in his draft year, but I kind of more like the guys down the line, the Benges, the Cliffords, the AJ McEwing, the Ohio kid. I know those aren't the most exciting guys, and that's probably why I still wouldn't do it. But I think when you're looking at a trade like this, it's, the Phillies never made a ton of sense to me. The Blue Jays don't make a ton of sense, again, because of the lack of pieces. So you have to find that rare team that has a good minors and has, the need. Yeah. And the Mets are one of those few teams, and I'll be very curious in general. I think they'll make some trades on the fringes. You and I both wouldn't be shocked if they ended up being mini buyers, if they flipped Khalil Watson for, who's an interesting athletic lottery ticket for a piece that helps them this year and next.
Right.
That's the type of deal where maybe we could see something occur. But yeah, I think, looking at this, and just one last note on the Class A part, it's like we're seeing relievers are really expensive. And, I also would not shock me if they tried to trade someone like Sabrowski, who's had health issues, but has been a really good lefty when he's been up, if they feel like they can capitalize on a market, especially because we haven't seen lefties traded. And it's more stuff like that. And especially if you feel like, hey, if they don't move Bieber, they could decide that Cantillo back in the bullpen with his velocity maintaining issues, and maybe he could be a lefty reliever. So, I see, watch now they're going to, of course, do something big, because I'm like, maybe they trade a reliever and Watson and get something interesting, do a bit of a buy, a bit of a sell. But and the other thing I find very interesting, just got this out there, is I see people being like, oh, PR nightmare if they trade Kwan, if they trade Bieber. I don't understand. I understand why it'd be negative PR with Kwan, because it's 2.5 years of control. And that's also why I think it's very unlikely to happen. Would it be with Bieber, who hasn't been healthy in 2 years? Like, is it still a PR nightmare for a guy who's thrown 2 games in the last 2 years, and the year before that was a number 3 starter? Bieber, I am very curious to see, like, more than even Kwan, because I think there's more of a likelihood, and I really have no idea what his valuation should be.
We haven't seen any starting pitching move. Like, Zach Littell was kind of the first starting pitcher that got moved. I guess Mike Soroka did too. Soroka, I don't know, maybe Bieber's value is closest to Soroka. Like, he might have a little bit more because the upside is there, but it really depends. I think Bieber is going to be one of those moves. Like, remember how Yu Darvish, I'm not saying he's Yu Darvish. Remember how Yu Darvish, though, was like announced like 5 minutes after the deadline was over?
I could see the Willie Calhoun.
Yeah, I could see the Bieber trade coming down to the wire on Thursday. I really could. You mentioned Kwan and the Mets and those players. I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but if you could sell me on trading Kwan if you got Carson Benge back. You know how much I love Carson Benge last year. And he's having a terrific year. He could be up in the outfield next year. Like, he's going to be close to being ready. You could sell me on Jose Bazana, the bionic version of Chase DeLauter, and Carson Benge for next year. You really could sell me on that. I'd be
especially
really
if you could like get Ryan Clifford as well in that deal, who's just a bleeding Double-A, who I liked as a high school kid.
And that's the price. That's the price. Like, we're talking somebody who can help this team win next year has to be first priority for Kwan. Yeah. So that would be a Carson Benge. That would be a Dalton Rushing. Like, the Dodgers continue to say, we're not trading Dalton Rushing. Of course they're going to say that. They don't want to trade him. But guess what? The Guardians, if they're going to trade with LA, it's going to be Dalton Rushing. Like, they're not going to say yes. They're not going to say, oh, okay, we'll take your next best offer. They don't have to trade him, guys. We said this a couple episodes ago. Yeah. You can let Kwan play out his contract here, go to free agency, say thanks for your service here, and let somebody else take the risk on later in the year with his body type, skill set, and injury history, and just try to win with him here next year. Like, you could do that and be okay with it. You don't have to re-sign everybody. There are guys that come with risks.
All right, we'll talk about the game.
we'll talk a little more trades here at the end, but we'll also get into the bullpen victory for the Guardians on Wednesday. Appreciate y'all making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. Make sure you're downloading on all the audio platforms. Make sure you are hitting the bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And that includes things like our reaction videos when the game ends, as well as any breaking news, and the MLB Squad Show, which will be coming to your way on Friday after the trade deadline is over. Wrap that all up. So all kinds of good stuff for you if you are a regular subscriber to Locked On Guardians. What were you going to say, Jeff?
2 quick notes. One, Mitch Keller isn't going to be traded, so that starting pitching market is now even thinner. And 2, just to go back to our previous point, if you've had 101 plate appearances in AA and you're spotting a 215 WRC plus, is that good? With more walks than strikeouts, is that good or bad?
Yeah, it might be okay. Might be okay hitter. Is that Carson Benge?
That's Carson Benge. Yeah, that's what
I love Carson Benge. I told you last year he was one of my guys. Carson Benge was one of my guys last year, and I thought that the step away from pitching, because he was a talented pitching prospect too. I said 100%. The step away from pitching would help him get much better.
And really Cleveland drafted his older brother out of community college, I want to say.
Who was that? I don't remember.
I got to remember what his older brother. He ended up going to college, and I kind of liked him. I got to look up his older brother, but yeah, they drafted his older brother.
Interesting.
I'm trying to remember what his older brother's name was.
Here's a good question for you. Okay, the way the starting pitching market is going right now, nobody's really moved. Like Gallen hasn't moved, Alcantara hasn't moved, Merrill Kelly hasn't moved. It's been Soroka and I guess Littell. Bieber to me is maybe not worth as much as Littell, but also a little bit more than Soroka. But given how the Guardians operate, like it wouldn't shock me if we get a return for Bieber and we're like, oh, that's a lot more than I would have expected, because the Guardians technically don't have to trade him either. I think they can also put a hard line in the sand and say, you know what, we'll just go with the qualifying offer. They don't usually do that, but if Bieber comes back and pitches like he can, the qualifying offer is still a pretty good fallback option for this team. And so I don't think they have to sit there and say
$16 million. I don't think we mentioned that. So that would only be $5 million more for Bieber with the qualifying offer than the Alex Cobb $16 million.
Yeah. And if he pitches well, the Guardians don't have to sit there and sweat and say, oh, he might take it, because he's going to cash in. Like they were worried Michael Brantley would the 1 year because he loved Cleveland and they were in the middle of a nice run. They don't have to worry about that with Bieber. If he pitches well, he's going to free agency. Like he's not a Boris client, but he's a Rosenhaus client, and he's a pitcher. He's got to get his payday. I also wonder this too, by the way, Jeff. I also wonder this. Yeah. Let's say the Guardians are not intended, but let's say they are inclined to trade Bieber, and they go to him and say, "We got to trade for you." He doesn't have a no trade clause, but given the relationship, given that he trusted them to come back here, rehab him, do you think that he might say, hey, I don't want to be traded? I think the Guardians might even go to him and say, we have a trade for you, but we're going to ask you first.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance Bieber might rather come back, even no matter what the situation is. I think he might rather come back, pitch here very well, safely, see what happens, and then hit the free agent market next year, coming off of a year where he's going to be taken care of. I think the relationship there might mean something. And I would love to see Bieber go out as go to the free agent market with a couple more starts. Like I would love to see them give it a shot at the rest of the year with him.
Yeah, no, I mean, basically it all comes down to the return, right? Like that's what's going to make me feel one way or another. Just to go back to an earlier point for those who are curious, Garrett Benge was his brother, who the then Cleveland Indians took in the 22nd round of 2015 draft out of Cowley Community College. He went to Oklahoma State and is one of those many players who got hosed by COVID. Like last year in the minors, when you see that 2019 cutoff, you're like, oh man, it became a train wreck for certain guys who were older.
Yeah. Good win for the Guardians though on Wednesday night. They beat the Rockies 5-0. Everybody did something good in this game. Brian Rocchio had a great tag at second base. I tweeted from the Locked On Guardians account. I said, "Is the professor back?" He had a great tag.
No, he's had too many negative plays this week. He's negative and not positive. The professor is dead. Dead and buried.
Okay. Great bullpen effort. By the way, Kobe Allard was fantastic. I also want to go back to this. I said this in my post-game reaction. That bullpen game was made possible by Logan Allen. If he doesn't go 7 innings the way he did on Tuesday, the bullpen is not rested enough to do that. And Doug Casey wasn't an option because he's now on the IL with an elbow impingement. So they had to go this route.
Year.
Yeah, or if they wanted to move up Messick, but they needed a 40-man spot. By the way, Trevor Stephan off the IL activated and sent to AAA because his rehab was not going well. So that's not really a shock there. So the Guardians 40-man roster status is at 39 with Stephen being off to 60. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But good game though. Allard was fantastic. The whole bullpen was fantastic.
Yeah, everyone did their
was
job.
good. Festa was great. Enright was great.
I mean, Junis had a big 2 innings, 2 Ks, no walks. I mean, they only allowed 3 hits. 3 hits and 1 walk. I mean, the bullpen dominated.
Everybody in the crowd was like, Kwan was waving to left field after the game was over, and everybody was crying. Oh, he knows he's leaving. Kwan does that every game. Do
people not watch?
But nobody shed a tear over Jake Junis, who I think it's more likely that was Jake Junis' last game as a Guardian than it was Stephen Kwan's.
And he ends up with a 3.2 ERA if that's the case. He ends up with he was decent. I mean, when the bads were bad, they were very bad. But he was that is not a bad signing in the end. Jake Junis is probably the most productive free agent addition. Not that speaks volumes. And I got to say this: I know David Fry had the big home run early, and he had a walk and had a good game. I am still team trade Santana for you can get. Send down Fry, let Manzardo play every day. Someone asked about a Kafis Fry platoon. There's no point to it.
No,
they're both right-handed.
Kafis is left-handed.
Fry's right-handed. Sorry, left-handed. I got that backwards. Yes, you're right. But it's like there's no point to it. If you're going to call him up, let him play. Just like
Kafis and Manzardo got to play here. And I didn't intend to talk about this, but we should bring this up. Kyle Freeland, which, I think he got sick and was not feeling his best on the mound and obviously looked like it.
I mean, he's having a rough year.
Yeah, he is having a rough year. I mean, is anybody in Colorado besides Hunter Goodman having a good year? Tyler Freeman.
Yes.
Tyler Freeman. Let's say this right now. The Guardians lost the Nolan Jones trade for Tyler Freeman. They just did.
It's too early. It's too early. We would have said the same thing about Brito for Jones, and then who knows? We still could win that. So many guys. I mean, we've seen Tyler Freeman have a good 3 months and then completely turn.
True, and it is Colorado. But I think Manzardo should have been in the lineup. Like David Fry had the home run, but again, I can see the idea of sitting Kyle Manzardo versus Tarek Skubal or Garrett Crochet. But against Kyle Freeland, Manzardo's got to be able to get 2 home runs. Yeah. You're either winning this year or you're building towards 26. This team, they're 500. They're not out of it, but we're really looking at
David Fry turns 30 this offseason.
Yeah, that's weird. That's for
sure.
He's
not a young man relative to everyone else. He's he had a late debut. He's a solid backup bench guy, but he should not be the guy playing.
No, and you can make the justification for Manzardo playing for you to win this year and for the future. You're hoping he's part of the long-term solution, and he's looked good recently. You can justify it both ways, that he is a good player helping you win right now, and he should be getting at bats to develop in the future against lefties. So there's no reason not to play him against Kyle Freeland. It's just ridiculous. But the offense was good. The bullpen was great. It was a good win overall. Everything went well for them. They scored early. Manzardo ended up getting a pinch hit and did get the hit when he pinch hit for David Fry. Yeah. If this team was, again, even it doesn't matter if this team is winning or not. I still wanted Manzardo to play. But if it was, like I said, if it was a Garrett Crochet or Tarek Skubal and this team was in possession of a playoff spot, I wouldn't get mad about it because
agreed.
You're trying to maximize. That's why we had no issues with Manzardo and Fry platooning in the playoffs last year because it worked, but it hasn't been working this year. Even though Fry hit the home run today and you won, that's great, but it's not really helping you this year because he's not playing well. It's not helping you long term either. So we'll see. But overall, good win for the Guardians, and they have an off day on Thursday. I am curious to see. It is nice to have the off day on the trade deadline, so it's not awkward. Yes. But I am curious to see if anything happens. I think it's more likely Bieber gets traded than Kwan. I think the Kwan trade honestly is. I was saying 50-50 or 60-40 he wouldn't get traded. I think my odds on that are dropping every minute just based on the prices and the rumors we keep hearing. But I'll be curious to see what the clubhouse looks like on Friday if they do make any moves, just because, this is 2023 all over again, where this team came into the year with a chance to hopefully win, and a lot of things went wrong for them this year.
I would say that team was so bad. Like, I think we tend to forget just how bad that team was, where like we were joking about like a historically awful offense. Like the offense isn't good this year, but that team in 23 was somehow even worse.
And they went out in the offseason and added power. They added Josh Bell and Mike Sneal. Like, they went out in the offseason and spent money on guys that could hit home runs. And
and it was not Chase DeLauder everyone was clamoring for. It was Bo Naylor was the prospect that we all clamored for.
And he was great in the second half. He was
second
great.
Half. So yeah, it's a situation where when it comes down to this whole situation with Kwan, we'll have to see. Like if they get, like I said, if there's a deal where you can somehow get like Benge and Clifford, like I mean, I hate to do it, but that's like a deal I got to think about because those
or Dalton Rushing. Yeah, I'm all in on Dalton Rushing too.
Exactly, but other than that, it's like because that's the thing, you're going to have to settle for unproven. Like that's just it. You're not getting Pages. You're not getting a young star from another team. That's not how this works.
No.
Because as good as Kwan is,
the Dodgers want to add outfield help. They can't afford to trade Pages and then also add Kwan.
No. So he is one of those guys he's one of the best at what he does, but he does have his gaps in his game, and it's just he's going to be a really good player for whatever team he goes to. But I don't know if he's ever going to be a great player for whatever team he goes to. Like he's one of those players who does raise your floor and make you a better team. But I don't think he's like that transcendent talent. Like when we talk about like the Soto deals and things like that.
No. I mean, Juan Soto is already a Hall of Famer. All right. And also that 2023 team, by the way, didn't have to deal with two players being put on a non-disciplinary leave for gambling. So there is that too. It's just been a really weird year overall. And despite that, the Guardians are 500 again after their win over the Rockies, by the way. Weirder things have happened. We'll see what happens. We'll be back in your feeds on Friday doing a full post-trade deadline recap. We'll break you any news that happens with the Guardians or trades in general.
Yeah. You said we will break you. I'm like,
we'll break you.
Justin has been broken by the deadline.
I am not Ivan Drago. I will not break you. We will bring you all the recap of any news that involves the Guardians or Guardians adjacent news. And we'll look ahead to the rest of 2025 and maybe 2026, depending on what happens. If anything big does happen, I will say this right now. If anything big does happen on Thursday regarding the Guardians, whether it's Kwan, Bieber, whatever, I may go live on YouTube because the deadline is at 5 or is at 6 Eastern, and I get off work at 5. So I may go live then. Also, shout out to Steven 24CLU, Chris Burnett, Chad K, and Cole H. All really kind words. We'll be back with you tomorrow to talk more Guardians trades.
Or no trades. We'll have to see. Deal or no deal. We will be finding out, just like all of you. Thank you for joining us again. Remember to rate and review, download. It helps. Comment below with what is the best trade deadline you remember and the worst trade deadline you remember. Thank you all, and go Guardians.